We'll continue our media availability here in the Media Center with Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Miller Lite Dodge. Currently sits 14th in points with 2 wins this season. Your name's been brought up a lot during media availability today about the wild card and the chase. Just talk a little bit about your strategy here at Michigan this weekend.
Sure. It's been a good couple of weeks for us over the last 3 or 4 races, and we got a lot of good things going. Obviously, leading the wild card standings, but certainly don't take that for granted. That could go away if we don't keep performing. So, last week was a big week for us, getting us up in solidly in the top 20. A little bit of breathing room on 21st, so that we can make sure and utilize the 2 wins. So, that was big for us. But we still got a lot of racing left. 4 races left to the chase starts. So, I really would just like to go out and win another race, and then wouldn't have to worry about it at all. So I think that's really where our focus is. This is a really cool race for me to come back home to Michigan, and would really like to win here, and think that the way we've been performing as of late, we can have a strong shot at doing that. So I guess that's kind of where our focus is. I'd like to say that we're spending a lot of time thinking about the chase stuff, but to be quite honest, I'm really not. I'm thinking a lot about how we can win here in Michigan, and when you win, you don't have to worry about all that other stuff. It takes care of itself. So that's kind of where our thoughts are.
We'll open it up for questions. We'll start right here with Don and then go back to Monty. Please state your name and affiliation.
There you go. Situated?
Yeah, I feel better about that. It was weird.
Don Coble with Morris News Service. 2 questions here. Was there a point a month or so ago or a month and a half ago where you thought, we got to get stuff figured out. We're not going to be in the chase. And then all of a sudden you go, hey, wait a minute. And where things just kind of snapped and fell into place, and now you realize, okay, it completely fooled me?
Well, I was really concerned after Loudon. We blew the tire at Loudon and had a terrible finish there, and really kind of fell back to, I think, 23rd or something like that in points. And it didn't look very good right there. It looked very, very bleak. But, I knew at any time we could, get on a hot streak. We've shown some performance just without the execution. I think I look at Charlotte Race Weeks as a perfect example. We had two races there, one with the All-Star and one with the 600, where I felt like we were a top 5 car at worst. And, the end of the 600, we had the fuel mileage deal and had to check up and kind of got all tangled up and ended up finishing like 20th with a car that ran in the top 10, top 5 all day. And, just things of that nature had kind of been happening to us. So I look at the last few weeks as just being, good execution and, combined with the speed that we've had for probably the last 2 to 3 months.
And as a follow-up, as we get closer to the chase, are you a little bit more aware to kind of mend your fences with anybody you've had any kind of arguments with, so the paybacks aren't held during the chase?
Well, I don't really know how to mend fences. There are some that I would like to mend, but there's no real playbook on how to do that. I wish somebody could teach me, but I think mostly, you just try to do right by yourself and by your team and what it means to be a competitor in this sport. And sometimes that's going to anger others, but, I'm sure there's a couple of people that are not happy with me. And when you're making people angry, you're doing things right in this sport because you're running well and you're digging and getting all you can get out of it. So I'm sure there's a few that aren't happy with me, but I don't think I have any that are super mad at me, which is kind of good. It's kind of unusual for me at this time of the year, but I feel pretty good about it.
Okay, we'll take a question from Monty, then Bob.
Monty Dutton, Gaston Gazette. There was a good bit of talk at one time that people would say, Roger Penske's a great car owner, he's got a great team, but it's difficult when he represents pretty much the sole Dodge contingent. That might makes right, and you don't have as many notes, you don't have things. How is that problem, if it is a problem, surmounted?
You mean, is this the question of Dodge only having 2 teams?
Yeah, I'm just saying is that there was a period of time saying, they do pretty doggone well for just doing this, but how can you compete with Toyota and Chevy and Ford with such a small impact?
Well, I think that when you look at that question, there's 2 different questions in there, whether you realize it or not. And the 2 different questions are, one, how do you compete when your odds are lower as a manufacturer? Because quite honestly, when you have two cars, you just have lower odds based against manufacturers at 8 or 10. Then there's a second question of this is what I gather when I hear you say it. But there's a second question of can you have the same amount of resources dedicated to performance as a manufacturer that has the 8 or 10 teams? And so I guess if I break those two questions down in my head, I look at the odds question, and certainly Dodge is at a disadvantage from an odds standpoint. We've got 2 to 3 cars or teams per weekend, whatever Robbie's doing on any given weekend. But in general, 2 to 3. And this guy's signaling 2. But, you've got 2 teams that are competitive week in and week out. The odds are going to be lower, when you compare that to Chevy or the Toyotas or Fords that have the 8 to 10. So, your odds are going to be lower in that fashion. No doubt about it. Is that a disadvantage? Yes. It's just pure odds. It's pure math. I don't think that's any different than, playing blackjack and only having one chip left. You're in tough. It's going to be tougher. But the second part of that question is, by having less teams and having less resources, is Dodge at a disadvantage? And I think the answer is clearly no. I think they're better served having their pool of resources with 2 teams that are coherent and focused, as I feel like the 2 and the 22 teams are right now in Penske Racing. And I think that's where we're at. I think that we have 2 teams that have got it right, have got to, for the most part, we don't get it right every time, but we've got it right more times than not as of late. And I think that Dodge is better served in that manner and in that fashion. I'm sure that there are some people, that would look at that question and see the first part, like you said, the pure odds. We just more cars. Your odds got to go up. But I'd rather have the hand of aces than have 3 hands of one pair, or 2 pair. I'd rather have the hand of aces and full house.
You could say that it was a very effective use of resources.
Absolutely, that's what I'm trying to say. And I think it's a 2-part question when you ask it, even if you might not ask it in that way. It's basically would you rather sit down at the blackjack table with 3 hands at 17 or with 1 hand at 20? And I think Dodge has the 1 hand at 20.